Welcome, everyone, to the Best of Markham podcast, brought to you by me, Igor Klibanov from FitnessSolutionsPlus.ca, your personal trainers for chronic conditions. Here with me today is Boris from the Archer Hearing Center. Boris, thank you so much for being here and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Igor. Much appreciated. Yeah, we're going to talk about the audiology stuff pretty soon and dive into that, right? So we'll sort of introduce myself in a not audiology way because I'm sure you can ask questions there.
You got it.
Since it's the best of Markham, I have been a Markham local for most of my life. I was born in Hong Kong. I moved here when I was three.
Yeah.
And then I've lived in Markham basically ever since. I've lived in the intersection of Kennedy and Highway 7. About 5 years ago, I ended up buying a place close to Markham Civil Hospital, so I'm still a Markham local and absolutely love it here. It's a lot of fun, and I'm happy that I get to find a way to contribute back to the community.
Yeah, fantastic. I lived in Markham for about 6 years. Now I'm in North York, but I've been working in Markham since a very like 2008 or so, thereabouts. So I've been working Markham for a very long time.
Yeah.
Um, and how did you get into audiology?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because I don't have a great, amazing story like a lot of my other audiology colleagues. A lot of people in audiology has a story somewhere along the lines of a family member has hearing loss, or they've hearing loss themselves, and have seen the, amazing contributions they've had in their own personal lives and want to move into that field. Unfortunately, I don't really share that story. I did my undergrad in classical music performance at U of T, actually. I was an oboe major.
Yeah.
We were playing in orchestras, chamber concerts, all sorts of stuff like that. And it's I sort of it the rationale went down two paths. One was it's really hard being a professional musician, right? I'm sure you can sort of understand the trials there, Igor. I sort of explain it really briefly. Being a professional classical musician is sort of like being a free agent in the NBA pool, but the difference in the pool is it's completely international and there's no age limit,
Mhm.
right? So it's not like people age out of basketball like in their 30s and then you can sort of jump in and wait a spot. Somebody gets a classical musician job, sort of stays in the orchestra until their hair's white and they're ready to retire, and then the whole world jumps in. I sort of figured, hey, maybe I'm not the top of the world to compete with some of the geniuses in Vienna and Tokyo, so I looked for other stuff. And at that point in time, I was very interested in linguistics. So I took a lot of speech stuff and Latin and language stuff. And one of my courses, there was an audiologist filling in for sabbatical for disabilities course. And he sort of dragged me in and said, hey, you seem to be great for audiology. Let me write you a letter and introduce you to the field. And next thing I knew, I got a master's acceptance in a Western for audiology.
Wow.
Here we are.
What a transition from classical music to audiology.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of funny because some people are like, oh, that's such a good mesh and everything. And although I will say day to day, there's not a lot of overlap between the two,
Yeah.
I actually run a really interesting niche because musicians care about their hearing very differently than the average person. And for me to have that understanding of like, how music works, what it means to perform and appreciate music in a specific way, to like audio engineers like mastering and editing like backtracks, right? And I understand all their lingo, and it makes for very interesting conversations and appointments for certain people.
Yeah, that's a very, very unique mix because not a lot of audiologists can say they have a classical music background. So very, very interesting blend.
Yeah,
What do you like most about being an audiologist as well as an entrepreneur?
that's a great question. I think it's just talking to people. Most of audiology, I am working with geriatrics or people about age 60 and up, just because the main cause of hearing loss is just age-related reasons. Your body changes as you move on through the decades of your life. And so every day I get to talk to people that have, I like to call them more vintaged. They've lived longer, they've been more experienced, and I just get
Advanced
to
in time.
chat. Exactly, right? They get smarter, warmer, better through time, and I get to learn so much from my patients, and it's just a fun time chatting. Our appointments are great because they're about 75 minutes long in the beginning. We spend some of the time doing the things we need to do, and other times I just ask them what they've learned in their life, and they share some crazy stories sometimes. I'm sure you've had that in your career too, right, Igor? And
My
makes it
specialty
fun.
is geriatrics as well. Uh,
Right.
so would they be offended if I called a 60-year-old a geriatric?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I do want to take, oh, you know what? I'll say the flip side. I also do a lot of pediatrics as well. We're one of the only clinics that do pediatric audiology.
Yeah.
And it's so rewarding helping children hear again for the first time and make sure they catch their milestones. Some of the people watch videos of like, oh, a child gets their cochlear implant or their hearing aid for the first time and they light up and smile and all of that. Sometimes it really happens, and I get to be part of that moment and that journey, and it's really heartwarming.
Oh yeah, it's amazing how differently you interact with the world when you can actually hear what somebody is saying, melodies, speeches, stuff like that. So you mentioned you often talk to your geriatric clients, patients, about what they've learned in their life, and any crazy stories come up?
Yeah, yeah, lots of crazy stories. I mean, recently, the most recent one is my partner. Well, actually, I'll tell a different story here. I have a patient who is 102, which
Oh,
is I know, and she's doing amazing for 102. Like
yeah.
very with it, takes care of herself in a retirement home, but like really just fully functional. And she used to be a spy for the British Air Forces. So
For what Air
she told
Forces?
me, sorry?
Which Air Force?
The British Air Forces.
Oh,
Yeah, and
wow.
she was telling me that there was once she was trying to protect a family's farm from being taken over by the Germans, and so they landed and they're warning them like, "Hey, you need to evacuate, or you need to find a way to secure your land." The people she was helping didn't speak that language and thought she was the Germans, and then there was whole kerfluffle and all of that. So just looking at somebody, I would have never guessed that she was a British spy, like flight agent, right?
Yeah.
So crazy. You can't
Yeah.
judge a book by its cover. I think I learned that every day.
Man, you could probably write a book not just about audiology, but just like the stories your clients tell you.
Yeah, no, and it's funny, Igor. Maybe I'll mention here in audiology we take out earwax removal is a very common service we do,
Right.
and so I find crazy things in people's ears as well. I mean, this can go a very different way of a pod because we want to hear some weird or funny things I've found in there. But yeah, this every day's a new day, right?
So what have you found besides earwax?
That's a good question. So maybe not a gross example. I think it is kind of funny because we do pediatrics. I had a 4-year-old come in where the mother was saying, "Hey, the kid's like constantly pulling on his ears and crying, saying it hurts and everything." So I take a look in. I see this like darkish black lump, and I think, "Oh, it's probably just earwax." So in earwax, sometimes we can remove it with just manual tools to sort of pick it out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm working on it. The kid's really sensitive. He's like, "Oh, it kind of hurts." I'm like, "Don't worry, I'll help you out. We'll get it out." But the more I work on that black mass, it slowly starts turning electric blue.
Oh,
Yeah, right. And so, I'm working at it, and I see this bright color. I'm like, "What the heck is going on?" And it turns out that this kid at daycare shoved a jelly bean in his ear, and it's been sitting there festering for months, and it's like sort of rotted over and like it's turned black and eating into like the ear canal and everything. So I'm
right.
like, this is as much as I do a lot of earwax, I'm like, this is above my pay grade because it started eating in the structures. So
Yeah.
we had to get him to the ER right away. They removed the jelly bean, definitely some damage in the ear canals, but just something you don't expect, but also something that a 4-year-old kid would totally do and you wouldn't know, right? Stick a jelly bean in
Oh,
the ear.
I guess you didn't learn that you eat with your mouth, not with your ear.
Yeah, I think the kid was saying, I wanted to save the jelly bean,
So
right?
his ear.
Yeah, exactly, right? So
Jesus,
there you go.
that's another crazy book you can write. Stuff
Exactly.
found inside people's ears.
Yeah, no, it's
Now, you're not just an audiologist, you're an entrepreneur as well. So,
yes.
what you have your own audiology center. So, what do you like most about being an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. I think I'll answer this in two ways. I think the difference between being an entrepreneur and just a clinical audiologist is every day is truly different. I'm sure you're working in healthcare as well and interviewing so many other healthcare professionals. When you're just an employee that's part of a larger ecosystem, day in, day out, you see your patients, you do your tasks, you write your reports, you go home, right? But I think being an entrepreneur and a business owner, I would say honestly, that's like 30% of the job. And it's the part of the job really well and can do with your like eyes blindfolded and hands tied because you have all this experience. But as an entrepreneur, you've got to deal with the marketing, you've got to deal with the legal, you've got to deal with how to generate leads, you've got to deal with websites. I'm building a website right now. I'm learning how to code and learning SEO and learning all of that.
Yeah.
Our clinic had a water damage accident from an incident next door, and then had to learn to navigate, the trials and tribulations of property damage, right? And
Yeah.
so every day is something new. I'm a guy that can't sit still. I always like doing something else. So this really tickles that itch for me, you know?
It's funny you should mention the water damage because two of my guests so far, so David Tam is one of them,
Yeah.
and Dean Giovanni from Float Valley, both said right before the podcast, like within 5 minutes, they were repairing some water damage. So that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. And
Well,
so
there, yeah. I guess the one thing to learn there, Igor, is like make sure you get water protection damage if you're an entrepreneur, right?
suddenly you're not just an entrepreneur, you're also a plumber.
Exactly, exactly.
So speaking of marketing, one of my favorite topics, I am a small business mentor for the city of Markham. So what are some of your most effective marketing strategies?
That's a great question. So maybe I'll jump in here a little bit and just say, before being an entrepreneur, I used to be a regional manager for a larger hearing chain. I managed the Toronto region, 10 clinics from Oshawa to Hamilton. And
Mhm.
so I was very fortunate to take that role because being a regional manager, I really got to be the center of the web for everything. What's happening in the storefronts and the clinical side, what happens to lead generation and finance and all of that. And I think that gave me a lot of knowledge and insight on a marketing strategy or lead generation strategy,
Yeah,
essentially. So we have four pipelines, essentially. I like to split it there, and we try to be quite rigorous with them. Number one, first and foremost, I think is just word of mouth,
yeah,
right? I think you've probably had everybody here say nothing beats word of mouth. When clients recommend you and mean it, people will come. We get
yeah,
great lead generation there. And I think what that means is you've got to treat every client with 110% of what you can give because you don't know if they're going to bring in somebody else. Even if they come in for something small and you don't anticipate anything out of it, you don't know if they're going to be a next great gold mine with a bunch of social connections that they're going to bring to your clinic. So that's one.
yeah.
We do our GP, or we call them GP drop-offs or GP connections. So we go visit different doctors' offices in person. We go and introduce ourselves. We have a little package with all of our services, what those services mean, and if they're covered through different funding sources, Ontario. So it's to help their patients out. My partner Jamie, the other owner of this clinic, is also a great plant mom, and we have like over 200 planted like pots of plants at home. And so she hand makes these like succulent arrangements with our little card on it. And then we hand them to GPs as a little gift. That's number two. Number three, we do a lot of what we call CBM or community-based marketing.
Yeah.
So every 2 months or so, I volunteer and give free hearing tests and free service to community centers, to retirement homes. I give presentations about hearing loss in English and Mandarin and Cantonese to different places. And every time I do one of those events where I give out something for free or don't charge for those talks or whatever, I get so much back. People, if you are a good presenter and you're good at interacting with new leads, you build that connection and they call in and they book for an appointment and book for some support. So I think honestly, the CBM has been the biggest piece and what's really driving our clinic revenue in the first months of operation.
That's amazing. My first, so I started my business in 2010, and the first 8 years, public speaking as well has been my biggest business driver until 2019, when my email marketing became an even bigger source than public speaking. So it's a very, very interesting similarities.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you nailed it because our last pipeline is definitely the online presence, right? So I think one thing, answering your previous question about entrepreneurship, one of the things I've learned really quickly is what are you not as good as and what can you offload to people smarter than you? I have offloaded a lot of my online presence strategy to a marketing firm, which we work collaboratively. They help a lot, and I really trust them. And that we're seeing that online presence strategy really climbing in terms of reach. And our leads used to be mainly through word of mouth and through community-based marketing the first 6 months, but I'd say recently we're almost hitting a year at our clinic. um, the web leads have overtaken already, and it's kind of
Yeah,
nice. Yeah,
exactly.
so helps a lot.
Scalability. Referrals are absolutely nice. The problem with them is that they're not predictable. and they're not proactive. You have to wait for somebody to do something.
That's right.
So there's no real strategy there. Like it's awesome when they come, but it's not deliberate. It's unpredictable. But things like online marketing, things like community-based marketing, stuff like that, that works really, really well. Now, one of the most difficult things when you are doing public speaking engagements is just getting butts and seats. So how do you get enough people in the room to make it worth your while?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Igor. And I think because for community presentations or public presentations, I organize a lot of this with the vendor or whoever's or like the group organizer, the being an association or being, the management of a certain community center or like location.
Yeah.
I honestly think it's that first interaction with those vendors or those organizers and being and making them love you through that first interaction, making those organizers understand I am here to provide a free service because I want to help out the community and offering value. And if they can really feel that sincerity, and I tell them, hey, all this is there just for the people of your community, they have really picked up their socks and just they call on my behalf. I don't have to generate anything. They really feel, hey, this is going to be a great event and a great presentation. And then it blows my mind. I get after my presentation, sometimes I offer free hearing aid screenings or wax removal after the service.
Yeah.
And let's say I allot 12 slots for that, I am filled with 50 after that.
Oh,
Because they talk well, and then all the community members trust the organizer because they have long relationships with them, right?
yeah.
And then they're like, oh, it's going to be great. And then it blows up. So I,
Yeah.
I think it's that initial connection.
That's awesome. That's a very nice, robust marketing system and relies on more than one source.
Yeah,
The scariest number in business is one. If you only have one source of generating leads and that source is gone, well, good luck to you. But so it's good to
exactly.
have multiple sources,
That's right.
especially ones that are reliable and not subject to change. You have one that is subject to change, your SEO, but community-based events, public speaking is the same as it's always been.
Yeah.
Knocking on doctors' doors, it's the same as always been. Those are the ones that I like, not to have to be at the mercy of Google or Facebook or etc. Um, it's awesome. Good for you. What are you working on right now that's exciting to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're expanding. So we're hitting our first year at the end of April. So this is literally we're on that last chunk for the first year, and we're busy enough where we're looking to hire somebody at the front. Right now, it's me and my partner Jamie Archer. She is my girlfriend, my life partner, and my business partner now. So far, we're doing fantastic. She doesn't want to kick me out of the house yet after work, so that's good.
Great.
But we're getting so busy in year one that we are looking to expand our employee headcount and setting that up. So that's exciting to know that we're doing well. We take a lot of students in because a lot of different roles have to do placements and practicums. So they've sort of filled that spot in the meanwhile. So we can educate them. They can get some hands-on experience with sitting in different roles and learning some clerical tasks as well. But that's been really exciting for us. And I think soon after that, hopefully in another year, we're going to open a second location, so it goes
Very
fast.
exciting. It's very, very impressive to be able to have a robust enough marketing and lead generation system to create demand for a second location. Are you able to disclose yet where it's going
Yeah.
to be or not yet?
You know what, Igor? Not yet, because I think in full transparency, um, I don't know what the best bet is. To find our first location, I literally sat down in parking lots of different potential places and looked at the foot traffic. I sat down in my car for 5 hours and tallied each person walking by, their age group or they are demographic we need, the type of car they drove, if they have dependents. I wrote it all down in my car for 5 hours. Then I knocked on every single person on the strip, the medical clinic we're in. I
Yeah.
asked all of them where they got their leads. Is this a good place? And from there, I made a decision. So it's really boots on the ground. I've been so busy, I haven't had that chance to do that yet for a second location, my friend.
Good for you. Yeah, sometimes location in and of itself can be just that is your marketing without anything else, just walk in traffic. And like I said, I volunteer for the Markham Small Business Center as a small business mentor. And one of my mentees, me and my co-mentor, we asked him. He was a Taekwondo instructor, and we asked him, "What do you do for lead generation? What do you do for marketing?" He says, "What's marketing?" We said, hold on a minute. You have a very successful Taekwondo studio. How do you get new clients, new students? He says, very simple. I'm on the same plaza as Longo's. Just moms shop at Longo's. It's a high-end grocery store. And then moms want their kids to do well in school, discipline, burn off some energy, get to sleep. So they walk in and we asked him, so how many clients are you getting? He says, one client per day.
Wow.
Just for reference, a martial arts club is considered to be doing well when they have 100 students after 10 years. He was
Right.
doing one per day. Me and my co-mentor, our jaws were on the ground. So he just accident. I don't know if it's on purpose or accidentally. He just
Yeah.
figured out a great marketing strategy that he doesn't need anything else.
Good for him. And I mean, hey, kudos to you for being his mentor and guiding people down the right path, right?
Yeah,
I think it's very true what you say about having a good anchor location,
yeah,
right? 'Cause that really drives traffic. One of the things I learned before is, depending on the field you're at, sometimes that anchor location is a giant supermarket or Shoppers Drug Mart or um like some people use plazas or whatnot, but I've learned being a manager before, we had a really successful storefront or a clinic that was just right beside a local Italian bakery that has been there for 30 years.
yeah,
So everybody goes there on the weekend, even though if you weren't part of that community, you would have never known.
yeah,
But him finding that place, he's like, he couldn't believe the visibility he got because of this tiny bakery right beside. So
yeah,
it's not always those big names, you could there's opportunities everywhere. And
yeah.
find those rare opportunities. The rent might not be as crazy expensive as finding an A-grade plaza either, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And good for you for taking the location so seriously that you spent 5 hours in your car and then walking into each personal plaza and saying how much foot traffic do you get. So I mean that obviously shows a lot of thought into it.
If you're signing a lease for, 5 or 10 years and you're dumping all that money into renovate, you better find a good location, right?
Yeah, exactly. For 5 hours is nothing to spend when you're going to when you're going to sign a 5 or 10 year lease.
Exactly.
What obstacles have you encountered in your time as both an audiologist and an entrepreneur besides water damage?
That's a great question as well. I think it would be very arrogant for me to say there hasn't been major obstacles. I think that my previous experience running 10 clinics for me has been almost like, oh, I'm shrinking from 10 clinics to one. Even though I didn't own it, running 10 to just running one meant a lot less work. And then not being part of a big corporate system where I had, directors I was accountable to or like numbers or whatever, right? Like to me, this almost feels like a lot easier way to just have fun and do it my own way. But I think to answer your question fruitfully, um, my partner is a very accomplished clinical audiologist. He's way better than I am. I would trust. I mean, I do trust her with my life because she's my partner, like my life partner as well. But even if I didn't, I trust her skills with my family. But she's noted because she doesn't have that background, managerial business kind of experience.
Yeah,
It's a really big jumping from a clinician to an audiologist
yeah,
because you don't know what you don't know. Like you said, like what is marketing, right? That person was lucky to hop onto somewhere that works really well with a great anchor location that was fruitful.
yeah.
But I've talked to other people that they don't know how to register. They don't even know what licenses they need. They don't know how to register for vendor numbers. They don't know what funding sources. They don't know how to set up a website. They don't even know what kind of insurance they need.
Mhm.
And you don't know what you don't know. So it's great that you're doing this mentoring thing because you can walk people through what it's like to set up a business. But I've talked to other people who want to start a business and they don't know the first thing about anything. They couldn't tell you what POS stood for,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And that's fine because they used to work as an employee for someone in a company that would take care of that component for them, right? So yeah, I think that's really it. I've been blessed with the experience, but I think in general, you don't know what you don't know. And if you're
Absolutely.
not willing to put in the time and you don't have the curiosity to figure it out, it might not always be for you.
Yeah, yeah. I know quite a few people who went into entrepreneurship after having a good, strong corporate background, especially for some reason, CPG, consumer packaged goods.
Yep.
So they saw the back end, then they saw, oh, I can do this myself. And then they do. And many of them are very successful.
Yeah, because the process is not hard, but you need to know the process, I think, a lot of the times, right? If you don't know what you don't know, you're stumbling in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to take you years, maybe over a decade to figure it out.
Exactly.
And what do you do in your free time?
That's a great question. I think I would like to call myself as a liquids enthusiast, which I think is probably something you probably haven't heard about before.
Yeah.
So I like create, amend, recreate cocktails from the top 50 bars in the world. And I run cocktail nights locally where like either with friends or people I don't know. And I build a whole cocktail menu. Sometimes I'm just a bartender and they can taste the whole thing. Sometimes I walk them through it. They shake and they stir and they do their own thing. It's like a master class. So I do that. I'm also a wine enthusiast. I was gonna get my sommelier license, but being a business owner sort of put a dampener on the studies there. I used to run a lot of wine nights with the same thing, curate a list, have a bunch of friends learn new things they didn't know about wine before. I have taken 5 years of Chinese tea ceremony lessons.
Yeah.
Fun fact, one of the best tea masters I would say in North America is right in Unionville. My tea teacher's
Oh,
absolutely amazing. I think a quick shout out to Chad Gloriette if anybody's listening. The best tea you'll find in Canada, period.
I have to.
So that's a lot of fun. I also run custom pour over stuff like for coffees and everything. So my dream is if I won the lottery, I would just open a shop where I have high-end liquids of any sorts that you'd like, and there'd be a whole experience for you.
Wow. It sounds like even in your private life, it's a lot of it's a lot of it's quite the experience.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's incredible. It's a lot on your plate.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, but you know what? You got to keep busy and you got to enjoy life because yeah, as an entrepreneur, you put tons of hours in and you work hard, but then you work hard so you can enjoy life afterwards, right? So you got to have as much fun as you are working, right?
And ideally, your work is enjoyable, so there's no separation between work and entertainment.
Exactly. Totally agree.
Absolutely. Since this is, after all, a Best of Markham podcast, what's your favorite business in Markham besides your own?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, obviously from listening to other ones, I knew that would be the question. And I think I really want to shout out Yuzu Eyewear. Yuzu Eyewear is there's an optician there named Sam, and he is the friendliest, most knowledgeable guy ever. And he's a great story of why he opened the clinic. But this optical clinic, they only sell handcrafted Japanese frames from a very specific city in Japan where it's all generational glasses makers slash artisans, and he flies in and gets up themselves, and the glasses you can find there are nothing like any other store you'll ever find. And after putting a pair of what he gave me on, I can never go back to traditional glasses. Like you see a lot of glasses out there, you buy Burberry or LV, and it's like heavy acetate or whatever. Like after you try like real things made from Japanese craftsmen, it's a game changer. So, and he's Sam Liang is such a great guy. I would recommend him to anybody in my life.
Wow, that's a strong recommendation. Maybe you can have him on my podcast at some point.
I'm sure he'd love that. So yeah, he has two locations. There's one on Gibson by Warden and Gibson, like the Denison area. And he just opened a second location recently by the Baroque area as well. So he's a Markhamer, two locations in Markham. I think it'd be great for your podcast.
Yeah, Markham through and through, absolutely.
That's right.
Lastly, how can our viewers and listeners get in touch with you?
That's also a really good question. So we do have a website. It's archerhearing.com, ARCHER, hearing, HEARING. You can also contact me by email. So that's my first name, Boris, so BORIS at archerhearing.com. We also have an Instagram and Facebook and all of that. I will say, Igor, maybe one thing is social media has also been something that's been a bit we even had the time to sort of make really robust. You can definitely find us on there and reach out to us, but it's not as active as I'd like to be. So that's probably a goal for our next steps for entrepreneurship. But honestly, a lot of people just call us. Our phone number is 905-201-2246, and I will always pick up and we'll have a good chat. So feel free to hit us up,
Listen, I'm in the same boat as you. I haven't posted anything on Instagram in 2 years.
right?
My business has never been better. And I've ranted many times on this podcast about like when social media makes sense, but just as importantly, when it doesn't make sense. And for businesses like mine, like David's and Wendy's, etc., that are high cost, high commitment, it does make sense.
Yeah.
For businesses that are more like restaurants, clothes, food, stuff like that, it makes a lot of sense. Um, Plus, you're doing so well anyways with your website, with referrals, doctors, and community based marketing. That why add an extra thing to your plate when you already have things that are working for you? Uh,
Exactly.
awesome. Let me. I'll add all of your contact information to the show notes, and everybody anybody who wants can absolutely get in touch with Boris.
All right. Well, Igor, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's honestly been a blast. It's nice having a candid and open conversation with such a nice guy. So thank you so much, Igor.
My pleasure. And thank you so much for being here.